So here we are, the final round of Fantasy Rugby. And to be honest, it's probably come pretty sad to be honest, because there isn't many fantasy games out there. We have to wait for the Six Nations until there's a real buzz again. However, this final is going to be epic. It's got All Blacks and South Africa, and they're both vying to get that fourth World Cup between them. So it's going to be epic, and we've also got England and Argentina within fantasy as well as the third place playoff. So that game is going to be pretty high stakes as well. England obviously already beaten Argentina earlier in the group stage. In terms of where I'm at in fantasy, I didn't really have a great round last round for the semi-finals. I captained Cheslin Colby. Jordan was definitely the pick, and lots of people triple captained him. Reason why I did that, I just had to essentially do a lot of making up, and in theory I said, even in my video, I should have picked Jordan. He's the best pick, but I went for a differential and it didn't play off. But that's fantasy and it happens. I really appreciate you guys watching all of these videos as well. We've actually built a really strong community and over 3,000 subscribers now on the channel. I'm super proud of what we've built, and if we can keep going, we're just going to keep growing and growing. So before we get into the team for the last round of Rugby World Cup Fantasy 2023, please subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. I will be posting fantasy videos on the Premiership as well. I've already started that, so there will be videos to come. Also, like and subscribe and comment down below your team picks. So, I know a lot of you have been waiting for this video. Is the last team selection of this World Cup. So, let's just get straight into it. I've gone with Thomas Gallo, Theo Dan and Ellis Genge in my front row. So, Thomas Gallo has been a really solid performer in this World Cup. He also stays on pretty much the whole game, especially for a prop. That is vital. Last game against New Zealand, it was 44-6, right? And he scored 36 points. So I'm confident if he stays on against England, he's going to get really good points. And at this stage, I think he's definitely a must-have in that prop position. There aren't many that are going to score a solid 20, 36 like last round. At hooker, I have gone with Theo Dan. I think he really deserves a start. Obviously been on the bench a lot of times for England. And of course Jamie George is a stalwart of that England team and a leader, so he hasn't been brought on. However, against Chile he scored 71 points, which was absolutely fantastic. 2 tries as well to his name. So I think with him getting this opportunity, the team are going to rally around him, and we all know what that England driver Moore can do. Next up is Ellis Genge. I guess hasn't performed too greatly in this World Cup. Had a few starts, but also a few on the bench. His high scoring was actually against Argentina in the first round with 24 points. So I do expect this game to be a little more free, and hopefully England have, a decent amount of possession so that Genge can get on the ball and carry hard like we know that he can. In the second row, I've gone with Maro Itoje and Scott Barrett. So as I said with that England set piece, and I have been for the whole tournament, this is, I guess, the main part of their game, right? That line out. Also, line out steals for Itoje has been pretty decent throughout this World Cup, and he's also carrying the ball a lot more, which I guess Borthwick is asking of him, being one of the senior players. So if he can keep carrying the ball and making good meters like he has done this World Cup, then he's going to get us some pretty decent points. Scott Barrett for me is a pretty decent utility player, and in that final he's going to be pretty much a linchpin to that set piece. So we all know he can play in the second row, but he has been transferred to the back row a fair few times. He hasn't scored amazing points. The highest that he's scored so far was in that loss to France. He scored 36 points. However, I think this game is going to be pretty tight. New Zealand are going to make a fair few tackles, but also that set piece is going to be really strong. So if Scott Barrett can get up in the air and win a fair few lineouts, much like Itoje, then I think he's going to score decently. In the back row, I've stuck with, 2 of my stalwarts in the team, to be fair. So I've gone Ben Earl and Ardie Savea, who have been pretty much players of their team for this World Cup. And I've also gone with Sam Cane as my defensive captain. We all know how good Ben Earl has been this World Cup for England, and he's going to want to cement that in the third place playoff by getting England to that third spot, which many of fans, including me, definitely wouldn't have thought coming into the World Cup. He scored pretty decently, a highest of 52 against Fiji, but I think he can score pretty decently, especially against Argentina, who will kick the ball not loosely, but not as tight as South Africa, and therefore England can get on the ball, get good ball carries with the likes of Earl. So Sam Cane is my defensive pick. He's New Zealand captain. I do hope and expect New Zealand to win the World Cup final. He scored pretty decently. Last 2 games, 31 and 30 points. That's in a quarter and semi-final, so he's really stepped up. In that Ireland game, he also made 22 tackles. So if he does that again, that's an extra 22 points for me. So I think it's a solid pick, picking a New Zealand 7 as your defensive pick, especially as captain, and if they do win, he's going to need to perform immensely. And with Ardie Savea, as we said, all tournament, he's absolutely smashed it. His points are, up there with the most in the whole game, and that's a back row. Last time out, 62 points, Ireland 66 points, quarter-final and semi-final. He's a big game player. If he's not in your team, then you definitely need to get him in. He was even a shout for me for captain, just because of the amount of times he actually gets on the ball and affects the game. It's just crazy. And he seems to always beat that first defender, or at least stay on his feet. So Ardie Savea for me is a must pick. At halfbacks, I've gone with my first South African in Faf de Klerk and also Owen Farrell. So I do expect these two to be linchpins for their sides and hopefully stay on for the full 80 minutes. With Faf de Klerk, there's actually not a scrum half pick on the bench. They've gone with a 7-1 split, which is really interesting. So hopefully and most likely Faf is going to play the whole game. He also disrupts pretty well. So turnovers could be good, but also carrying. He likes to also take quick taps. If South Africa are going to win, then it's going to be at the halfbacks. It's going to be Faf de Klerk and Handré Pollard. Faf to get the ball out quickly to beat that New Zealand defence, and also obviously Handré Pollard to kick the goals. So I think these two are going to be key for their win if it's going to happen. But much like Handré Pollard, Owen Farrell is going to kick goals after goals against Argentina. We may even see another drop goal. Like Savea and Sam Cane, he's a big game player. So Fiji 51 points, South Africa 23 points, which was predominantly from kicking. So I do expect him to slot goals again, but also they're going to look to play. So assists are going to be on Farrell's radar for sure. And I am backing England to get that third place. In the centres, I have backed Rieko Ioane, and I've gone with Damian de Allende. So in the last round, Rieko Ioane actually was taken off and didn't score too greatly. I think it was like 20 points or so. However, Geordie Barrett scored a lot more. I think it was 50 odd. Did score a try, but I have risked it a little bit with Rieko Ioane. He is a flair player, so if they can get him the ball in the wide channels, then I do expect him to get good meters. And he seems to always be on that inside or outside pass or tip. So I have backed Rieko, but Geordie Barrett is also a decent pick in the centres for the All Blacks. And my thoughts on Damian de Allende are pretty decent. So against France, he scored 45 points, which I would definitely take in this round. England, 14 points. Obviously, didn't have much of the ball. It was a bit of a scrappy game. Or the All Blacks are going to look to play, right? South Africa, probably less so. But when they do get the ball, they are going to pounce. And I'm hoping de Allende, being one of their strongest ball carriers, definitely in the backs, is going to get good meterage. And finally, the outside backs to cap off my final team selection. I've gone captain Henry Arundel. Only game he's played, he's scored 128 points. I've gone with Will Jordan, top point scorer in fantasy, and also Mark Talea, who's third most points scored in fantasy as well. So Henry Arundel, as I said, only game he's played, he scored 128 points. There was rumours that he fell out with Farrell, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Farrell's playing, so is Arundel, so I think they're professionals, they're going to go out and do a job. Against Argentina, they could have pretty much a good amount of possession, and with the picks of Smith and Arundel, they're going to look to play. So Arundel being out-and-out winger as well, with Freddie Stewart on the other, they're going to look to target where Arundel is playing. They've clearly seen something in the analysis, which is why they've picked him for his flair. So they're definitely going to try and exploit that. So I'm hoping another 5 tries for Arundel. Not much to say about Will Jordan. Scored a hat-trick in the World Cup semi-final, which pretty much is unheard of and pretty crazy. I think he needs one more try. I think he's also on 8 tries at the moment. So if he scores another in the final, then he's going to be the leading try scorer in one Rugby World Cup. So I definitely think he can do it with the way New Zealand play. I'm not captaining him because I think the final is going to be tight, but he is definitely going to perform. And then finally, Mark Talea. So even though Jordan got all the plaudits last time out against Argentina with 106 points, Mark Talea was the unsung hero. So actually scored 65 points without scoring a try. The All Blacks use him as a really good outlet. So he is able, much like Adi Salvador, to get through that first tackle. Not necessarily because of his power, but he has good feet, also power as well, right? But I think this is a good mix for New Zealand, with Jordan being the out-and-out try scorer and Talea having that different edge to beat the defenders and get over that gain line. So I think he's just as important as Will Jordan. So there we have it. That is my final team selection for the Rugby World Cup Fantasy 2023. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I think this week is going to be a little bit more different than last week. Last week, everyone seemed to pick the same players. However, this week, with there being a final and a third place playoff, there's going to be 2 types of games. Obviously, third place, you're not really playing for anything, whereas final is going to be tighter and cagey, which is predominantly why I've picked my boosters and captains like I have. So, if you have enjoyed this video, but also enjoyed the whole Rugby Fantasy and the content we're producing on this channel, then please leave it a like, comment down below as well. I love to see all your interactions. And also, obviously, subscribe to the channel to not miss out on further content. Good luck in the last round, and I'll see you for the final wrap-up video next week.